All right, guys, we are back with code.org. AP Comp Sci A, we're going to look at Unit 1, Lesson 5 today. Um, it is the wonderful year of 2025 where our friends at the College Board have decided to update everything and kind of redo the units. So it looks like code.org has done a good job of trying to align with that. So this should be using their updated content. So Unit 1 is all about objects and their methods. For today specifically, we did a little bit of work with algorithms, with understanding what their Java lab is, et cetera, et cetera. And so for today, what I want to do is I want to make our way over to lesson 5. So we're going to talk a little bit more about classes and objects within this while we create, instantiate an object. So if we look at lesson 5, so basically what I want to do is I want to kind of show you step by step what's happening with each of these modules so you have a better understanding what's going on. Now, for better or for worse, what code.org will do is they'll kind of throw everything at you at once, um, which is great because a lot of the stuff's pre-built, but also I want to make sure that we pay attention to some important concepts here that we need to learn. Okay, first things first, most of the time when you're in any lesson, the first circle, first bubble, first module, I call it, is typically like, hey, run this and see what you think's going on. Um, what they're trying to do in this case is they want you to explore a little bit and see if this program runs the way it needs to. Okay. And what's nice about code.org, which is awesome, is unlike an IDE where like Eclipse, where you're just sitting there with a blank screen, they'll actually pre-build a lot of this so you can see your preview. So if I look at the goal here on the top left, what appears to me what I'm seeing is the painter is presumably Ezra is being spawned in the top left, turns, and then moves, turns, moves, turns, moves again, and gets to that house. Okay, so our goal is we need to spawn Ezra, and let's see what happens. So I'm gonna kind of blow this up a little bit and see how it goes, and then I will go from there. So the first thing I want to do is, sorry, let's run this thing and just see what happens. So we have in the console, ooh, there's a whole smattering of errors I'm getting. There's a ton. Okay. And this is where if you have a programming duck, or I also call it a debug duck, it really helps. The main thing we do when we get errors is I always like to scroll to the top of the errors and just go debug one at a time. And it's good to have a little notepad with you to a scratch paper, something you can really write down and say, hey, I did this or that, depending on the line you're working on. Luckily, we're only working with one class. It's the main class, or the tester class. So I basically want to just focus on this and just pay attention to where the lines are that need to be fixed. First thing I see is line 13. We have some sort of error with Ezra. And then we have another one 14 about Ezra. So you can see kind of where these carrots are pointing to. So there's something wrong with Ezra dot turn left. And specifically, the wonderful thing about Java is they're pretty explicit on what's going on with their errors. Here it says, hey, I can't find the symbol. Presumably this is Ezra. So you'll see if as you go through this, if you try and debug, right, because there's one real problem here, you'll see that there's all these errors that are completely the same or almost the same. The problem here appears to be this Ezra. You can see the color is red, is being used somehow. Okay, and so here's what's happening. So we have a class that's already set up. Always note that the file name, the neighborhood runner.java should match the class name. The public static void main string args, that's all kind of the standard language you use to designate this as the main class. And then here you can see in code.org they say, hey, you need to instantiate the missing painter object. All right, so what we're doing here is how we're going to instantiate a painter object. I'm going to use comments here. If you remember correctly, there's the double slashes, right? So in order to instantiate the missing object, I need to use the new keyword, have some sort of name, and have some sort of like object type or object reference or class reference. That's what we want. We haven't really explored classes yet, but what you need to know is there is a painter class that is built into code.org. You can't see it right here, but it's something you can see up here where it says import org.code.neighborhood. We'll go into that further detail later. You can also look at the documentation in code.org, which is under this tab up here called documentation, and you can find it. But they made a class called painter. Now, just to kind of tease you a little bit with this, but they've built a separate file, if you will, or class called Painter. And that's what allows The painter you spawn to turn left, to move, eventually paint, right? All those things are kind of preloaded. We didn't write the code for it. So by doing this, it allows us to import it here, but we don't need to see it. So any of the classes or any of the methods or anything that's made in their file for neighborhood is automatically brought over here. So we don't have to worry about the details there, but at this point, you're kind of just trusting that I know what I'm talking about. So in order to instantiate any sort of object, what we want to do is kind of the formula, if you will, is, and let me just use that kind of notation, is you're going to go with the class name, the name you make up, equals the new keyword, follow the class name, and then parentheses with a semicolon. That's what you're going to follow. That's kind of the typical convention. Okay. We'll go through constructors and things like that later, but this is just to spawn a single painter object. So let's do painter. And we want to call it Ezra, right? Because that's the person we have here that's going to turn left and move and all that. We're going to use the assignment operator, which is the equal sign. And then we're going to use the new keyword and then painter with the parentheses and the semicolon. So again, I believe in the instructions, they should tell us, hey, you need to have a painter object. Okay. Add comments, right? Blah, blah, blah. So I made this new line of code. There are comments here. You can see they're grayed out. There's two ways to do the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and run this thing. I'm gonna clear the console just because it had a vomit of errors there. And look, Ezra appears and it looks like they're doing their thing. And yeah, get to the house. When you're done with this in code.org, hit the test button because you can't move on unless you pass the test. This is running shadow code that's going to read through the code that I created and I wrote and make sure it matches their answer key. Looks like maybe there's no test, so then they just want to know, hey, did you achieve the result? Okay, so that's good enough. Sometimes you'll see a test running in the background. You'll see it on the console. Some things to note here. So there's a class, object instantiate, object-oriented programming. So basically, kind of going through one by one, I'll start from the top down. Object-oriented programming. This is kind of where we look to write code where we use an object to use methods. So we want to spawn something. It doesn't have to be visible. It could be invisible. It could just be on the code. And you're going to spawn an object and it's going to start doing things. Um, Okay, so for that, we're going to do an approach created to creating and using models of physical or imagined objects. Um, an instance of a class is an object. So if I create, in that case, Ezra is a painter object, it's going to take on the attributes, kind of what the qualities are of that class. In my class that I teach, I use Pokemon and Pokedex a lot as a reference because there's lots of different types of Pokemon. You guys are more experts than I am, but there's grass type, water type, fire type, etc. So if I wanted what's a water type? Vaporeon. I think that's a type of, fox Pokemon thing. It's a water type, right? So it's going to go ahead and be within the water type class. And it can have attributes that all water Pokemon share, which I'm not really certain of, but that's that. Okay, and then let's see, to call the constructor to create an object, that's going to be what we do to instantiate. That should be it. There we go. So class is where it's basically a blueprint for, hey, when I spawn a Pokemon object, or in this case a painter object, what is it able to do? It's able to move, turn left, and eventually paint. Here, I think we're doing the same thing. It looks like I can see right off the bat, Blake's going to move, but Blake's not created yet. So let's go ahead and instantiate. And again, that idea is we're going to go ahead and follow the convention of, we want the class name, whatever name of object you want, the assignment operator, new keyword, and the class name with parentheses again. So that's kind of your typical formula we're going to use here. So again, I got painter. In this case, we're going to have Blake move. I can already tell that without running this thing. And it's going to be new painter. Is there anything else they want me to do? I don't know. Let's run the paint. Run the program. Hey, he spawns, he moves. So you can kind of look at here, and I'm kind of getting a little bit ahead. You might be wondering, hey, Souther, what are those like periods, and why is there a move, and it's blue, and there's a parentheses? So what's really happening here that we can explore more in class is we spawn a painter object named Blake. Blake now has the ability to move, turn left, paint, etc. In order to make Blake move or turn left or whatever, I need to use that object that I just spawned. And we're going to use this dot, and that dot or period is uh, the assignment operator, or sorry, is called the dot operator. We're going to use that a lot in this class in Java because we're going to use the object to call some sort of action. Okay. Sometimes the action you can see, sometimes you can't see. It works behind the scenes. So it's really cool. What follows the operator, the dot operator, is the method with the parentheses and a semicolon at the end. Semicolons are always used to end the line in Java. The parentheses you'll learn about parameters later and arguments. But for now, we're just going to know that, hey, there's a parentheses there. So whenever you see I like to look at the colors too, but it's blue with the parentheses, that means it's some sort of method that we're using to call. Let's test this bad boy and just see if we can finish. It looks like it was just let us move on, which is great. Now we have a bunch of practice to do. Let's look at D maybe. Typically through A, B, C, D, D is normally the hardest one. In my experience, let's see if they changed anything this year. Again, we're just instantiating painter objects that are missing. I'm just going to take a look. Now, in this case, what's cool is they made Leo and Akira. They're referencing two different objects. They're both from the painter class. So that is one for sure, like something that hopefully you'll pick up on, is that we have not one, but we have two different painter objects to create or instantiate. One is Leo, one is Akira. So I'm going to do painter Leo equals new painter. No big deal there. Now let's go ahead and do painter Akira equals new painter. Now the beauty of this, you'll see when I run this, is that you can have two objects doing different things simultaneously, essentially. Well, I can't say simultaneously because this is running sequentially. And there we go. That presumably is Leo first, and then we have Akira over there, making their way over to the cone. And that's that. I can test it. And it looks like there's no test that needs to run, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish it. So hopefully that lesson helps. Again, the main thing is we're just trying to figure out, hey, how do you create an object? I try to tease a little bit in terms of, what's going on with the object, like why we use it. You can see the answer already, but I'll talk about it. On the last module here, student creates a painter class. Cool. The object art will be declared as a type painter. Which of the following statements is true? Art is an instance of the painter class, which you already know is the answer. Painter is an instance of the art object. So again, what you have to remember is any object you spawn is an instance of the class. So what that means is going to take on the attributes, which are the methods, the certain variables you want to create that are attached to that class, are all there. So again, something we'll continue to explore because this whole unit is just about objects. All right, hope that helps, and let me know if you have questions.